Well, if it's anything, Kurt, it's a tough little helicopter. It had beautiful flying conditions, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it was.
God, you couldn't ask for
There was
better.
no wind.
There was no wind at all.
No rain, no wind. Yeah,
No.
it was perfect.
No.
Lighting was just right.
It was.
Sun never set. Never
Never
rose,
did.
never set. One of the benefits of being able to take advantage of access to a nice gymnasium, which really fit the Chronos FP110 ideally.
Yeah.
It was really the perfect environment to be able to fly. Well, of course, not everybody has access to a pristine
State-of-the-art
gymnasium.
high school gym.
Yeah, but
With
their
a gigantic truck smashing through the wall. That's what makes it.
But their backyard on a calm day would be
Yeah.
perfect as well. So
Definitely.
But that's getting into the review stuff.
Yeah,
So
let's not
jump into
spoil it.
Come on.
All right. Well, we'll start with model characteristics. Build as advertised, 5 out of 5. You did a great job of building it. It looks beautiful.
My
Obviously,
skills
didn't
are
give you any
improving.
trouble.
You know, it popped right out of the box and nothing. Install the battery, charge up the battery, and install it, and it was ready to go. So
There you go,
really,
right up
really
your alley.
straightforward. Yeah, which is what you want.
Yeah, well,
This
sure.
is- RTF means ready to fly.
Yep.
Charge the battery, and it's ready to go. No messing around with anything. It was real simple.
That's right. Finish, 5 out of 5. It's an attractive looking helicopter as
It
far
is.
as helicopters go.
Yep.
I mean, from my lay point of view.
Well, you know, the canopy, even commenting on the canopy as well.
Yeah.
It's a slick looking canopy, and it's really thick.
Well, it
it's
is.
not
It's
your
very-
typical, floppy
yeah.
kind of canopy at all.
You pick it up and you can feel that it obviously will take some abuse for that
Yep.
first time pilot. You know, someone that isn't going to keep it in the air all the time.
Trim, lettering, everything is just
Yeah.
perfectly
It's nice
laid
looking.
on. Yep.
Power, you gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, and you could tell from the video as well. You know, when you get into the power, it definitely climbs up and gives
Yeah.
you what you want. And you know, being a fixed pitch helicopter, you're going to rely on you're going to rely entirely on a power plant for your altitude change,
Sure.
for ascending. So when you want to climb, you're going to hope that it's there on the left stick. You know, you're going to hope that the power is there when you crank it up.
Yeah.
And it never lacked for power at
Yeah.
all. You know, it's again, extra power can go to waste on a fixed pitch because the more power you add, the faster the forward flight, and you're going to at some point exceed the
Exactly.
dynamic
Yeah.
capabilities of the helicopter. So it was definitely ample for the FP110.
All right, ground handling, 3.5 out of 5. Explain.
A little washy.
Explain,
A
Lucy.
little washy. And we've talked about this before as far as the design of the main rotor blades. The more tapered they are, the thicker the profile at the root to the thinner the profile at the tip creates mechanical stability. If you think of it that way, it creates a conical profile to the main rotor, which is inherent stability. You know, it's got a lot of lift at the center, and it creates a nice pocket for the rotor to fall into. When you get into that, of course, you tend to be a little more twitchy. You tend to be a little more susceptible to turbulence at the ground. So when you get into ground effect, you get a lot of turbulence going on, and it tends to make things want to walk and crawl on you a little bit. Coaxials will tend to do the same exact thing. We experienced the same thing with the FP110. It wanted to kind of walk and dance, so you couldn't bring it into that nice, perfect spot landing.
Yeah.
But you know, it gets you down there. It definitely doesn't take off, but you got to get from about 20 inches off the ground. You know, maybe
Get out of that ground
from
effect.
12
Yeah.
to 20 inches, foot and a half, maybe even 2 foot out of the ground effect to really stabilize the helicopter. But it's certainly controllable. It doesn't go crazy on you and walk all over the place, but it's not absolute rock solid in ground effect.
All right. Durability, 4.5 out of 5.
You know, you saw what we did today, and it was intentional.
Those were all intentional.
Yep. Rob was okay. Rob, I'm going to go ahead and give it a blade strike.
Now,
You
if
ready?
Kurt would have been on the camera, they would have all been unintentional.
Yeah, well, they've been a lot more interesting.
We'd had a lot of them.
They'd have been high speed. They'd have been, all
Yep.
that stuff. But we did intentionally bring it down on a hard surface to see how it handled it. And it was kind of that typical beginner type of crash
Sure.
where
Where
too
it's
much
just coming in sideways,
Yep.
out of control.
too
blind.
much collective input,
Yep.
and it kind of comes on its side and smacks the blades a little bit. And
Yep.
we did that half a dozen times off camera. We did at least twice on camera. And it didn't set it upright and take
Yeah, it
off.
took
So
off.
the durability is there, which is what you need.
And I noticed too when you gave it throttle that the head wasn't acting any different. or
No,
anything,
it didn't
spooled
do
right
any.
back up.
It didn't do any long-term effects to it whatsoever.
All right, well that brings us to pilot experience. Flight as advertised. You gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yep. This is a tough gap to fill. The fixed pitch arena is cyclic pitch, or collective pitch pilots don't like flying
Yeah.
fixed pitch because the controls are all throttle based.
We'll do this, and let me interrupt you for just a second. I want you to do this in two segments.
Okay.
All right. What I want you to do is, I want you to go through first and tell me what your experience was when you flew this. All right. And I want Explain what you felt as soon as you got that thing in the air, and then I want you to go back and explain why you think it did what it did.
Okay.
All right, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I want guys to feel what your honest
Yep.
opinion was on this.
When you first took it off, got it into a hover. One of the cool things, if you hand me the transmitter,
Yep.
one of the cool things about the setup is they do give you a proportional mix dial, so you can actually adjust your proportional mix, and it can be a little confusing for first timers because you have your trim for your heading as well for your rudder, but then you also have proportional mix. Proportional mix is the amount of mixing that takes place between the tail rotor motor and the main motor. Whenever you apply power, you'll get a twitch, one direction or the other.
Yeah.
In this case, too strong a proportional mix or too hot a mix, and it wants to spin nose to the left because it's hitting that tail rotor motor too hard. So you back it off a little bit, and to the point where when you punch the throttle, it wants to go to the left. Well, you keep adjusting it to where you can pretty much get into the throttle quickly, and it'll pop up, and you won't get a whole lot of tail movement.
Yeah.
It's not like it's taken off out of control, like the headlock gyro isn't working. It's just absolute par for the course for coaxials, for single rotor fixed pitch that run with a separate tail rotor motor. So whenever you get that separate tail rotor motor, or two motors like coaxial or like this setup, you've got a proportional mix that can make that happen. And we've talked about it before in previous reviews. So took it off the ground, got it about 2.5, maybe 3 feet up, adjusted the proportional mix, punched the throttle a couple times, watched it pop up, and got it to where it wasn't really twisting one way or the other. And then we're set to do a little bit of tail trimming, a little bit of headlock trimming. So once it got stable, it held its position relatively well. Again, for a fixed pitch single rotor, there's nothing inherently keeping it in its location. It's going to want to walk a little bit on you, and it'll do that. It'll walk, and that's pretty common. What you'll get with the heavier taper at the root and thinner at the tip is you'll get kind of that washing toilet bowl, and you'll see that. It'll just kind of wash a little bit, not real fast, but just slowly. It'll keep kind of oscillating back and forth. That's normal. Then you transition into forward flight, and that's really where a fixed pitch comes into play. It's meant to teach you how to fly forward flight.
Sure.
Getting that orientation, it's going away from you, that you have to stay on the tail rotor to go ahead and keep that heading direction, because it's headlock gyro is going to keep it straight. Now, even when you get forward speed, you don't have enough forward speed necessarily for the vertical stabilizer to take over completely and weather vane you. It does help. It definitely helps you, and if you do heavy bank turns, it'll help you keep your heading straight. But you've got to work that rotor, that tail rotor a little bit. So that's that first big training step for you. The Chronos is going to kind of keep you a little bit on your toes. You're going to pay attention to the attitude of the aircraft, the speed of the aircraft, and then ultimately what your prevailing conditions are. Would I say it's outside the norm for this class? No, I'd say it's pretty much in the middle of the norm for this class. It didn't defy logic and say, wow, this thing, and create a new physics barrier for fixed pitch helicopters, which would be kind of on that 5 out of 5. But it does a solid job. It does it consistently. It's just going to be a more active flight process than what you may feel on some of the other fixed pitch solutions out there that almost keep you too safe in that zone. So when you make the jump to collective pitch, it's a huge gap. Like, oh my, what's going on here? This is crazy. No, it's not crazy. It's real helicopter flight. This is what it's supposed to feel like. So, one thing I noticed too on the transmitter, the way it's set up, the tail rotor, there's a lot of deadband, very big deadband on the tail rotor. Which, if you fly helicopter at all and you're comfortable with flying helicopter, the first thing you're on is a tail rotor, the rudder control.
For those of you that don't understand what he's talking about as far as deadband is right there from center, slightly left and right. It's just nothing.
Deadband is just that. It's a dead band of control.
You have to give it a definite input left and right to get it to respond.
Yeah, you've got to get into it to get the tail to go active. Which, when you start doing your circuits on forward flight, even if they're nice and calm and gentle, you're always into that tail rotor, the rudder, to keep that heading to go around the way you want it to, especially at lower speeds. And I caught myself several times saying, what's going on? Oh, there it is. Okay. I just need to take it a little bit further, and now I've got my tail rotor control. So, deadband also helps beginners.
Well, it does.
Over control, and that's the reason for deadband. It's supposed to be a big helper for people who are just getting into something, so you don't accidentally find yourself constantly on your heading control instead of letting the gyro do its work. So it's it's a catch-22.
Well, it is, because you're going to get guys that fly helicopters and know how to fly fixed pitch and collective pitch both, that may grab the Chronos and have a completely different outlook than we do on it. They're not looking at it from the standpoint in which we have to look at it, which is that step from coaxial, up into the next step.
Pitch,
So, the little things, the little idiosyncrasies of the helicopter are going to help a beginner, like you said, where someone who's seasoned may instantly try to fly it and just say, man, this thing is junk. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I don't like the responsiveness. I don't like the control.
Exactly.
But you have to pick your poison.
Yeah.
If you're an experienced pilot, you're beyond fixed pitch. Honestly, you need to be on collective pitch.
Well,
and,
sure.
and accept that fixed pitch is going to have significant.
That's like somebody
limitations.
who's a seasoned pilot going to a 3-channel and then complaining that it just isn't as responsive as they want it to be.
Yeah,
and a lot of guys
and
do
I do
that.
that. It's, you
well,
and
we
I
all
both.
do it.
As
we
soon
all
as you go
do
from
it.
4-channel back to 3-channel, it drives you crazy.
You've got to
'cause
put yourself in that mindset of, okay,
Yeah.
I'm just starting out again. This 3-channel is quite a bit, it's
Yep.
very responsive.
Yeah, why can't I flatten out my turns?
Yeah.
All my turns, I can't flatten them out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, we didn't mean to beat that up too much,
Nope.
but I think it's important that we got those points
Absolutely.
so people understand where we're coming from with this.
Mm-hmm.
Flight time, 5 out of 5. Now, I was surprised too, Kurt. You were on it quite a bit.
Yep.
Probably more so than the average beginner is going to be, obviously, or
Mm-hmm.
someone who just wants to leisurely fly around. And we got a solid 8 minutes out of that 500 milliamp
Yep,
battery.
we did consistently. I mean,
Yes.
that was timed. That was
Yep, we timed it, and that was still running. That wasn't running right to
Nope.
where the battery
no.
tanked
You
out.
had enough to land with it.
Yep, exactly.
So,
All right, so that brings us to field size. Obviously, we flew it in a gym.
which is perfect.
It was perfect. The conditions were perfect. You have no outside element pushing you around trying to figure out why this isn't doing what you want it to.
Yep.
If you have the opportunity to fly it in a larger indoor space, even someone's garage or
Yep.
an outbuilding of some sort, a bigger building with no outside influence, do it, and you'll probably have a better flight experience the first
Or
couple times.
just discipline yourself to stick with those mornings or evenings when it's
Yep,
dead calm.
when it's dead calm.
And you can enjoy the flight instead
Yep.
of fighting the wind. So,
Yeah.
but you can control it. It does have enough cyclic pitch control to be able to fight through 5-mile-an-hour winds, just
Sure.
like they say. Personally, it wasn't exactly an enjoyable flight, but you could do it. It was almost
Yeah.
like a can you? Oh, yep, we can.
Well, yeah.
It's,
There's a big difference between can you and should you.
Exactly. Yeah. Can you and do you want to?
That's
So,
always a fine line for most guys in RC. Portability, 5 out of 5. Again, one of the nice things about all the Aries products so far to date, and a lot of manufacturers, is the packaging is molded for the product itself. It slides right in. It's very well
Yep.
protective.
carry
And
handle.
I believe it has a carry handle.
Carry
in it.
handle,
Oh,
5
there
out
you
of
go.
5.
That's automatically
Has a
5
carry
out of
handle,
5. All right, skill level, beginner, intermediate. I think we explained that pretty well up to this point.
You're going to be at the finish of your beginner skills.
Yeah.
You've got all your orientation down. You can fly a coaxial consistently. You can stop it in all different. You can land it where you want to land it. Put it on spot, and fly it forwards, fly it backwards, and not get confused. Never get confused. Pick it up and feel like it's a more natural movement to be able to fly that helicopter without thinking of which stick you're pushing where.
Yeah.
That's the end of beginner, and you're ready. You're just going to have to make the jump and get into forward flight. And forward flight is the beginner, the first steps of intermediate.
Yeah.
You're now learning how to fly a helicopter. So
Yep.
I think it definitely is at the high end of beginner into the low end of intermediate, which arguably that is coaxial to, single rotor flight.
Sure.
That's definitely that gap, but I would not, if you're a beginner, don't say, I want to start off with the Chronos FP110 and this is
Yeah.
going to be great. No, it's going to handle your mishaps as a beginner, and we prove that by throwing into hard surfaces.
Yeah.
But you're at some point going to break it.
Well-
You're going to smash it into something. It's going to get out of hand, and you're going to get very frustrated.
We still, to this day, you and I both see it a lot in the industry, or not in the industry, in the hobby. Having a good experience when you're just starting out in RC has everything to do with the choices you make.
It's decisioning. Yeah.
It's all decisioning, and we see it to this day still. So many people let what they want to fly overrule what they should fly.
Exactly.
Because they see a scale model hanging at the hobby shop, or they see something in a review and it's like, man, that is cool, that's what I want. And then what happens is it leads to a horrible experience for them because they're not ready for that.
Yeah.
And so it takes what could be a nice long hobby for them that they could advance themselves through,
Yep.
and they get soured on it, and they never touch it again.
Yep.
And I hate to see anybody do that who really wanted to get into the hobby make bad choices. It really, and that has a lot to do with
And I
it.
think helicopters really personify those
Yeah, they
choices
do.
too.
They do.
Trying to skip from the coaxial to the fixed pitch single rotor forward flight into collective pitch,
Yep.
aggressive forward flight, and basic aerobatics into 3D.
Yeah.
That's a progression. It's a
It
skill
is.
progression. It's
It
it's a muscle memory progression.
Yep.
And you have to take it at the pace that your body's going to respond to it.
Yeah.
And not everybody's the same. Some
Yeah.
people could pick it up and within 30 days they're flying forward flight and doing basic aerobatics. They're wired a little differently.
Yeah.
And at the same time, those are often the people that miss some of the fundamentals as well.
exactly.
And they find themselves getting scared witless because something just happened and they weren't expecting it.
Look
So,
what I did when I got into the hobby. What I do, I went out and bought a plane that there was no way I could fly.
Yeah.
But I didn't fly it.
No, you
hung
hung
it on
the
the ceiling
shelf,
until I was ready to fly it. And what it did was, it gave me something to work for. I
Yep.
couldn't wait till the day when my skills were up enough to where I could fly that plane. And when
you
they
did.
were,
You
I flew it
successfully.
beautifully.
Yep.
Exactly.
No problem at all.
Yep.
Yep.
We beat that to death. So
I think we did.
Yeah.
That's the Chronos FP110. It's you know, there's a lot of helicopter there for the money.
there is.
And there's
there is.
absolutely no arguing that fact, and it's durable, and it's going to help somebody who knows how to fly coaxial get closer, that much closer to collective pitch flight. You can see the full review at our website at tobefly.com. For mobile users, you can go to rcflightsource.com, download our mobile app, and take our content with you on the go. I'm Kurt with Two Brothers Hobby.
And I'm Rob. Thanks for watching.